Great to be here. Thanks, Heather. I'll kick things off, then I'll throw it over to Gib. Gib and I have been in this industry for a long time, and have enjoyed kind of seeing everything around how small businesses can struggle with lots of things, and choice is one of them. Trying to find the right partner can be really, really challenging. And so we're excited to jump in here and be able to talk with you all here. It's going to be a pretty informal approach. The way Gib and I have decided to approach it is, imagine that it's the two of us sitting at a bar, and one of you have pulled up a seat, and we're just talking through some things on how to deal with and find the right partners out there, either software solutions or service providers, and we'll get into all kinds of good stuff. But I'll actually let Gib do an intro of himself, give you a little background, then I'll jump in with a little bit.
Yeah, I'm Gib Olander. I'm currently the executive vice president of product for Vendasta. Vendasta is a technology platform, and our mission really is to help local economies thrive, and we believe that we can do that best by helping small and medium-sized businesses find ways to utilize technology to match to the modern customer journey. And we do all of that through trusted experts. But before my time at Vendasta, I spent a lot of time working with small and medium-sized businesses, and my family did even. I mean, I can go way back in time. My dad used to be a general manager of a yellow page telephone book company, right? So I got lots of times talking with him about how small businesses need to use, marketing and advertising. And then my mom was actually a general manager of a radio station. And so again, back in the days, those were the two major, mediums that small businesses use. But I then moved into technology and got the opportunity to invent and build some products like Local Ease, which is a simple product of listing management that we sold to millions of small businesses, and eventually sold that company to Newstar. We also I worked at a company called City Search. City Search is one of the very first city guides that really gave everybody an opportunity to use. It was kind of the predecessor to Yelp. So if you were trying to get found online, you were able to. I'll tell you a quick story about how long ago I've been in the space. That in order to sell websites via City Search, you would walk into businesses, right? You'd set up an appointment and you'd show up, and I would be a kind of a trusted advisor, or somebody that hopefully the small business owner could trust to learn about technology. And to play that role, I would often demonstrate the software on a laptop that I would carry around. But this is long enough ago that you had to dial up to use the laptop. And so I can remember vividly, Dan, standing at the corner of a pizza shop, right? They weren't open for breakfast, right? So it's probably like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm meeting with this gentleman that's a fantastic, entrepreneur, is running a great business, but is interested in how this technology was going to help him grow his business. And so I needed to show him a demonstration of how City Search worked and how websites worked. And so to do that, I needed a phone line. And so at the time, he would get orders at lunch via fax. Like, that was the technology of the day. So I unplugged his fax line to plug in my laptop to start dial-up. Now, people here watching probably don't even know what dial-up is, but at the time, it was a really slow way to get internet access. And I can remember this gentleman being so concerned that the internet was going to break his fax machine and that he wasn't going to be able to get faxes again after I had just gotten this data in between. So this idea of helping small businesses adopt technology and learn about it is something that I've done for a really long time, and I'm really passionate about. And so I'm excited that we get a chance to talk about this today.
Yeah, so awesome. And I'll see how many times I date myself as well in my background here today. But as we said, we've been in this space for a long time, both passionate about small and medium-sized businesses. My background has been in SaaS, in software solutions, but also a lot of services businesses. I was at another startup here in Chicago called Performix, which was a software company, but then really grew a lot of services around digital marketing. We were one of the first people to advertise on this company called Google, helped them actually work on the beta testing of AdWords, which is what makes Google all this money. And so really great experience kind of seeing how the internet and internet advertising and the whole space took off. And we've obviously got a chance to benefit from that. So really interesting times. The company eventually got bought by a company called DoubleClick, which then got bought by Google. So what was once a partner became a parent company. And so then I broke out from there and started the company I'm currently at, which is called UpCity. And UpCity is similar to the way we're thinking about digital marketing and helping large companies. At my last company with companies like HP and Target and Kohl's, this company was really focused on helping small and medium-sized businesses utilize the internet to help them grow their company and optimize. So after a couple different evolutions, what UpCity really is all about is helping small, medium-sized businesses find the right service providers. So similar to how you can, leverage Amazon or Yelp to help you make either product decisions or restaurant decisions, we think small, medium-sized businesses should have the same insights into their next web designer, their next accountant, their next IT services provider, and really take a lot of the stress out of that decision-making process. And so, been very passionate about this problem, and it's like super relevant to the conversation we're having today. Is how there's so much choice. How do you find the right service provider? And with Gib's background in software, we think we have a really good perspective on how do we make some sense of a pretty crazy world here. That too much pile is a good way to describe it. There's just, if it seems like you're inundated, it's because you are, and there's so many things going on right now around choice. There's more software solutions, more service providers than there ever have been. And so hopefully by the end of this time, Gib and I can shed a little light on that and provide a little playbook for how to do this better going forward.
Dan, I love that space.
Go ahead.
I love that space that you guys work in so much, because in my time working with small businesses, the most successful ones, one of the things I always found was when you asked them a question, a lot of times they'd answer, I got a girl that does that, or I got a woman that does that, or I got a guy that does that, right? Like it was like, hey, who built your website? Oh, I got an amazing woman that did that for me, right? Or who does your accounting? Oh, I got a great guy that does that, right? And it's the businesses that learn how to off-source that or outsource that a little bit, right? And then manage that process are the ones that get to spend the most time doing the thing they're most passionate about. And so I think your space is super valuable to small businesses that are still trying to find their guy, or still trying to establish, what kind of gal do I need to do that next thing? And so I think there's a great opportunity.
Yeah, totally agree. It's been, as you and I have talked about it, our business model's evolved, and that problem hasn't gotten any better, right? So the internet, I would say, is, has done one amazing thing. You could argue that, hey, has it made other things better? I don't know. But for one thing, it's definitely has helped buyers make better buying decisions. And so I think, there's just more information out there. If Gib and I are trying to go grab a bite to eat tonight and find a horrible place, that's on us, because there's all kinds of resources out there to make sure the dinner we have tonight is amazing. And Chicago's got plenty of amazing spots. So that's another thing. You're overwhelmed with choice. There's, 75 Italian restaurants within a couple miles of both of us. How do you figure that out? And so we just think it's an interesting model to apply to lots of different purchase decisions. And so for us, we just think businesses have been underserved here, and it's very easy to get passionate about it because we feel it. We got a relatively new office, and it came time to figure out who can help us build out our IT infrastructure here. So we know exactly how that feels as entrepreneurs, and how overwhelming it can be.
Yeah, I love how you tee that up, and I think of that as that customer journey has changed, right? Like the things that have to happen in that space are different, and it started maybe with the consumer to consumer kind of buying, but I think at the end of the day, when it's a B2C type of purchase, or a C2B or B2B type purchase as well, that we're still consumers at heart, right? Like the things that we use to make buying decisions and the steps that we go through are pretty similar. And I think it can help you run your business better if you think about the way the journey's changing.
Yeah, agreed. So let's dive into the journey a little bit. I think we've got that's the first part of the playbook we'd love to help everybody figure out. What should be on the shopping list? I think, because as you're thinking about your business, as you mentioned earlier, Gib, there's a reason why someone may have started out as a web designer, right, and created a web design business. They probably really like building websites, but building websites and running a web design business can be two very different types of things. And so, for the most part, what you really want to think about as it goes into that shopping list is evaluating that customer journey. Let me pull up the slide we've got up here, and just to kind of set it up. Actually, I think your team put this one together, Dave, so I'll let you speak to it. But I think this can help actually like drive the thinking about what your customer is doing, and then therefore thinking through how that should affect what we do and how we do it. Let's see if I can pop back into here. Oh no, I've got all kinds of views. There we go. You seeing it okay, Gib?
Yeah, this is great, right?
Cool.
One of the things that I think about this, and it echoes the point that I was just talking about, which is this is a customer journey that talks about how maybe your customers are finding you as a small business owner, right? But
yep.
as a small business owner that's trying to make buying technology decisions, you're going to go through these same exact things. So your agencies or your vendors are going through this same process. So how do you find tools to do this? But we built this slide originally just to show how much technology is needed for a small business to actually app up to the customer journey today, right? There's in just the advertising bucket or the idea of stimulating awareness, you might need technology that helps you with search or social. You might need to have a software like Constant Contact for email marketing. You might need to do something like, I don't know, who's a good loyalty provider? There used to be somebody like Belly used to be in the loyalty space. I don't know if they're still there, but right, they were a local company.
Yeah, I think they're still kicking.
Right, and so in the loyalty space, or maybe you need an agency to do your YouTube ads or your video ads. Maybe you need somebody to help you do creative or television or billboard, right? So right there, you've got a bunch of technology and people you might need to think. Then you've got the next step of the funnel, which is you've generated awareness or you've found awareness. How do you find tools and technologies that help drive your findability? Things like listings on the maps and in directories, and how do you get found via Alexa or voice search? Then you've got, once they've found you, you want to make them choose you, and you need some reviews or you need some social proof. And so you might need another set of software that gives you review management, or you might need, again, social media posting or technology. And then you've got the moment of conversion. Do you have an easy way for people to pay? Are you able to use Apple Pay, or are you able to do online store transactions? We've seen an incredible growth for small businesses this year after the pandemic. It was, and I forget the exact numbers, but the adoption of e-commerce by small businesses grew faster in 8 months than it did in the previous 10 years when you look at the data, because they all realized that they had to drive an e-commerce kind of transaction. And so as a small business owner, and then after somebody's bought, you want to continue that loop and that journey. So you want them to write a social post about you. You want them to write a review. You want them to tell their friends, right? And so you need a whole stack of technology to make this happen. And as a small business owner, that can be really difficult, right? So how do you find experts, or first, how do you find, budget and experts to try to look at all this different software that you may need to run your business, and either outsource it or become an expert at it yourself?
Yeah, agreed. I think this is a perfect example of how, where you brought up a perfect example of how that customer journey changed for a consumer looking to get a meal from a local restaurant, right? This was all in person. And then with the pandemic, that changed dramatically. It became online ordering and all those types of things. So, that industry had to go through a lot of change. I know that was coming along, but to your point, it accelerated really quickly because, 99% of customers, probably 100% at certain times, were not coming into your restaurant anymore and sitting down and ordering a meal. It was all takeout. It was all delivery. All those things had to change. And so then therefore, the software stack that small business had to have changed dramatically. The other thing I'd layer on here, go ahead.
I was just going to add to that, even maps and listings, right? How, you don't know if they're open. You don't know if you have to wear a mask. You don't know if they're, like there's so much things that change kind of every day in the world today that if you're not keeping that content up, how is somebody going to know? And I bet we all do it. I do, right? I look at those listings and those maps to try to make a buying decision.
For sure. For sure. So, it's evolving quickly. And I think the customer, whether or not you are working directly with consumers or with other businesses, it's moving really fast. And I think that's the part of it. And I think as you're thinking about your shopping list of, well, what do I need from a vendor perspective? Again, if you're really thinking about your marketing, then this one does a really good outline from a marketing perspective, but there's other things. What do I need from an accounting perspective? And we kind of talked about some of the payments components or ongoing email you may want to send out to people or all the other components that kind of align into this. And I think the other layer on here is sometimes there's a software solution to fix a problem. So you think about what are those problems that you don't want to be problems anymore. Can software alone fix it? And if not, it might need a person, right? So there's not, a piece of software that can do your books for you. You're going to need a person to potentially help you with that as well and account for the dollars that are coming in through the door. And in either situation, as you're thinking about the problems you need to solve, it's some combination of software and some combination of people that are going to help kind of plug it for you. So important to think about. But before you even think about those things, it's the bucket. My books are taking me too long, or I'm spending a lot of time in invoicing, or it could be I don't know anything about marketing. Once you kind of understand your gaps, then it's a good time to start thinking through how you're going to fill it, which then gets us into kind of other parts of this playbook.
Inventory management you might need legal and compliance software, you might need HR software, right? There's a lot of different areas that this starts to go to. So
exactly.
Identifying how can you buy yourself time to do the thing that you're uniquely good at that drives growth in your business is really what I think is really the topic of the day. It's, how do you thin your pile or how do you prioritize what exactly is the most valuable thing for you to be doing to grow your business?
Yeah. I talk about this a lot. My sister is a immigration attorney. She runs her own practice. And so perfect example of just, where she starts to spend her time is obviously very valuable. And it's more, she can bill out hours around helping folks with their immigration challenges. Can't bill out the time it takes for her to do accounting and the marketing side of her business. And again, running an immigration business can be really overwhelming for her. So I talk about this shopping list concept of like, what do you need to get done, and what of it are you not excited about? Sometimes there are people who are lawyers and also like to get into the marketing. My dad is a retired attorney, and he loved the marketing stuff. So there might be things that you enjoy that's different from your day job. But if you don't do it, if you don't enjoy those things, but it needs to get done, then it's time to look for those solutions. To either look for software or services to do that for you.
I agree. So how do you go about picking software, right? Like, I think that's kind of the next question, right? Like, what do you start to look for in those people? Or, I like your approach. I like to start this with a time chart, right? I ask the people that work for me all the time, how do you spend your time in a day? Can you log, can you spend a week just logging your time? It's shocking sometimes where your time gets spent. And from that, it can start to give you an idea of where you can free up time to do higher leveraged work.
It's a great point. It is something where I do spend budget time to figure out how I'm going to spend time, and it's worthwhile, right? Even for you, because it's as an entrepreneur and as anybody, an employee, what you do the next week is going to have a profound impact on how effective you are, right? And it's even more pressure if you're a sole entrepreneur and those things. Hey, if you don't pick the right things to do that week, that month, that quarter, really that could put you out of business. So I totally agree with you, and I think a lot of people are pretty shocked to see how they spend time, what they're doing during it. And then the other layer I put on there, Gib, is what of those activities do you enjoy, or you could just would die if you have to do again. So that's important too. And so is it the right priority, and is that the highest and best use of your time as an individual? So going through that is real important. So one of the things that our next topic is, okay, now we've kind of talked through the list. Now you've got some consideration, software, services, DI, do I do it myself? Do I have someone else do it for me? Some combination of those things, prioritizing your time. Now we do want to present it like, okay, does this get hard? And we talk about that kind of word overwhelmed and what's going on here. And I think your slide here, Gib, does a nice job of explaining this, at least on the software side, and I'll back it back up on the services side. But I thought this one did a really nice job. I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah, time is the most finite resource we have, right? It's the one you can't get back, right? So if you're not really thoughtful in how you're spending it to grow your business, in trouble. And time is really the thing that I think pulls this thing together. So we pulled together a bunch of data. One of the things that we looked at is like, how many software providers are there in the SMB space? And it turns out there's more than 71,000 companies out there, and it's growing every single day. So the choice is hard, right? Like there's a lot to choose from each one of these buckets. And there's a Lumascape out there. I think this was by Keith Martek, maybe, so where you can go dig into this a little bit deeper if you want to. But one of the things that we found in some of the surveys that we've looked at is that a small and medium-sized business gets to spend only about a third of their time on their core business, right? And that's why this software is actually valuable and important, and why there's such a market for it, because really good software can free up time for us and allow us to do the most valuable things. And then one of the things that we found when we surveyed customers or SMBs that actually do deal with, we call them cloud experts here, but it's any channel partner, it's any agency, is they would rather have that one expert that can handle multiple things for them, as opposed to trying a different sales guy in every different area. And so finding a point person to run your technology, I think, is a really big idea that can help you, is to appoint a person that you can oversee or that can help you get that in alignment to then train your staff with it. But the thing, and then the last thing that we saw is that, holy cow, with these 71,000 that they're taking, that we as small business owners are getting called 7 to 8 times a week from solution providers, right? And so we've got to make ourselves educated about what's out there and what's available, and make ourselves knowledgeable so that we don't, one, we can spend our time on the thing, like you said, most enjoyable or makes us the most money. 2, we can identify the calls that we want to take versus the ones that are the nuisance calls that we don't need to. And then 3, that we can know enough about it to empower someone in our team or our staff to help us pull that stack together on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and I don't know if depending on how this comes across on everybody's screen, but there's a logo in each of these buckets, and so I haven't seen this in a while because I've been out of this, more of the software side, and more on this on my marketplace business, trying to help people with decisions and providing reviews and all those types of things. So it's crazy to see how this has grown, even in the 5-10 years that this has been playing out. But this is why it feels like a lot. And those 7 to 8 phone calls a week, that's I know of others that are getting 7 to 8 a day. So right. And in the past, you could rely on a salesperson to help educate you on something new, but as a business owner, you can't take 7 to 8 calls a week, or even close to a couple calls a day, because you gotta do what you need to get done. So I think there's been a general, and what we've seen, and you probably see it, is a general retrenchment from leveraging sales folks as resources, because there's just too many people vying for your time. And so, the emails don't get answered quite as much. I know I get, my inbox, like everybody else's inbox, probably has 35 sales inquiries today. And my phone rings and I don't answer anymore, because 9 times out of 10, it's a salesperson, more for my business than it is even for me as an individual. So we pull back, right? And rightly so, because it's just not enough time. And that 1/3, that's where that 1/3 comes from, because just everything just starts to soak up some really valuable time. So I think, what are the things that that you guys have found, Gib, where, how do you offset that? We kind of get into the overwhelmed part. It feels like I don't know if the buyer is ever going to come back, because I don't think this noise isn't going to get any quieter. Would you agree, or do you think it's kind of like, it's just, hey, this evolution, there's a lot of software, and then everybody's going to evolve their approach? I just think it's going to be noisier than ever before. I don't think this feels like a longer-term trend.
Yeah, I would agree. It's absolutely a long-term trend. It's becoming easier and easier every day to build a software company.
Right.
Now there's with the cloud, it became significantly easier, right? With no-code tools, with Git repositories. There's just so many ways for a hacker and a hustler to come together. And I'm not saying hustler in a bad way or hacker in a bad way, but a technologist and a business-minded person to come together and solve a business problem. And that's happening every single day and will continue to do. Yeah. So the thing that we found is that it's kind of around that last bullet point that people really want single logins. They want a stack that's put together. They want somebody that they can count on to do that. And so I think it's looking for, instead of a point solution provider, and that's kind of what we call each one of those logos is a point solution, that you really want to find a platform. You really want to find something that has good interoperability, that is connected to several different pieces, that you can, again, get that single point to help learn and help you learn and help you find the right solution for you. So I think you want to find a provider that is connected to a marketplace, or that has lots of options to bring you, that isn't so beholden to their one software, right? So if you've got a provider that is just selling you reputation management or just selling you a POS system, that's probably all they're going to know about, right? Now, finding somebody that's connected to a marketplace or multiple products and services, I think can create a much better user experience for you as a small business owner, and also give you choice to decide which of these flavors is best for you.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the to kind of even use your visual here, instead of finding a provider for video marketing, email marketing, content marketing, ideally you've got one spot where you can come in and all this orange section is taken care of for you as a business. That's big, and that's hard to find. But I think Gib and I know and work closely with people who do a lot of these things very well. Now, it might be hard to find someone who does a great job in your email marketing and then knock out your payroll. But so there's obviously, different groups of things that you can put together, and certain groups you can't. But you can potentially group payroll with, health benefits administration, or maybe there's someone who also helps manages some of your IT stuff. So there's some really nice business models that have been evolving that does solve for a large portion of these things. You don't have 17 contacts as a business owner getting the things done we put on your shopping list. So the one other thing, so this is the software side. We threw up a slide in here, just a real simple one, just on service providers. So, so you're getting hit, on 7 to 8 software pitches, but there's also these people that are also knocking on your door. And there's over, so if there's over 70,000 software providers, there's 900,000 companies in the U.S. alone. That is what we call this B2B services space, right? They're here to help you on your accounting, your marketing, all those different types of things. Legal, software, and IT is a huge space. So it is overwhelming. It's the good news, maybe not so. I'd say similar news. It's not growing as fast as the software space, but it's growing faster than it ever has before. Similar to what Gib said before, it's much easier to spin up a new marketing company, right? So if Gib and I wanted to start a software development company or a web design company 20 years ago, we'd have to spend a lot of time thinking about what are we going to use for email, and what are we the costs just get to be really high. You have to start hosting servers and crazy stuff. Now it's you spin up a Gmail account for business and you're off and rolling. So things are really conducive for entrepreneurs, which I think is amazing. It's one of the more exciting developments in the last 20 years. But what that does on the other flip side of that is it does create more competition, and it creates this choice and this too much pile that we're talking about here.
I think it's really interesting to think about how many more people are, becoming entrepreneurs themselves. And many of these service providers are small businesses, just like the people that we're talking today, right? And so they go through many of these same situations where they're trying to build tech stacks and where they're building out their company. But there's some really great people out there to work with, and finding one of these experts, one of these people that you can trust, can really be a multiplying factor for your business.
Yeah, agreed. I think the last thing I'll differentiate on the software and services side, after spending some time in both, is that the software, again, overwhelming, but you can at least typically crack things open, do trials, get a sense if it works for you or not. The challenge when you're hiring a person is you're ultimately you're investing in or betting on the fact that that person's talented, they're going to treat you right, there's going to be all kinds of things. So there's a lot of more variables sometimes involved. You can't test it out sometimes. You're going to make a commitment to working with this person, and it could be 3 to 6 months before you know if it's the right fit or not. And so that can add some more stress to those situations. And hopefully it just puts the emphasis on, okay, having a good process and making sure that you're checking all the boxes you can before you find the right software or find the right person. Takes us to our next topic, Gib. So where does one start? Where should we tell these folks to start their research process, do you think?
Yeah, I think the first tip we've given already is still important. It's measure your time, right?
Yeah.
Find out your time. Do a little introspection of what you like to do and what you're best at. Find out if there's, and then start researching, are there ways to optimize that part, the parts that you either want to do more or want to do less. And as we display, there's a lot of software that can help you do those things. So I would start with, do that pie chart of your time. Find out, do you have any leaks that aren't really productive, that are hard for you to do or inefficient for you to do, or your business isn't thriving at? And then I think the next thing is, go to Google, right? Start that customer journey.
Yeah, I think like I brought back that analogy earlier. Hey, when you're looking for a restaurant, where do you go? You typically either pop in Google or you go directly to a Yelp or something like that. Online is a natural first place, and there's great stuff and great information there, obviously. And so I'm still surprised. So our company, if you search for web designers in Chicago or what have you, different types of service providers in local markets. We show up for about 160,000 of those keywords, and that's been growing for quite some time. And so people are starting to see the internet as a great new resource to help them make business buying decisions, just as it helps them make consumer buying decisions. And there's a lot of great data out there. Our company in particular, we consider a marketplace business that Gib mentioned earlier. We help buyers of services in particular try to connect with great service providers. And so we ultimately we've got over 100,000 providers in our database, and we're trying to curate that, right? That's, again, we've got, of that 900,000 that's there, 100,000 that we think are really good. We've already cut it down to 1/9 of the market size. And then we cut that down even further to, hey, here are the top 15 in Chicago. Here's the top 20 in Cincinnati. Really creating a very curated content for folks to try to do that. And we're not the only one, obviously. I'd like to talk about our company, but there are other companies out there. Clutch is another one, clutch.co. Between the two of us, we probably have 100,000 reviews that are there to help people make decisions on these things. So there's more and more structured data around helping businesses make decisions. On the software side, you've got companies like G2, right, Gib? So, as people are thinking about making software decisions, Capterra has been around for a while. There's a lot of folks in that space that are helping with those buying decisions to help people figure out the best CRM or reputation management component, which has been interesting to see. How have you seen that market evolve? And with this growth of software, Do you guys work with the G2s or thinking about that from from a purchase process perspective, or how does that fit in your business model at all?
Yeah, we do talk to those companies, and we do, monitor the reviews that are in those spaces, and I think they're really important, right? It's as consumers, right, around our house, we've used Angie's List for this, or we've used Yelp to find restaurants, right? Like we've, or maybe we've used Home Advisor to find a general contractor, right? And so this model that your business provides is one that we're comfortable with as buyers. It just wasn't always available. There wasn't enough content available on this software space or this services space and the B2B side of things. So I'm super excited about your business model and the way they do it. What we do is we work with a lot of agencies and channel partners that need help, or not need help, but are looking for additional products and services to sell. So we make that available to them in a marketplace. And so what we like to see is that these channel partners or these trusted experts, we think that you should look for ones that have access to multiple products and multiple tools. Again, that one trick pony, they may be really great at that one thing, and sometimes you're going to need that expert. A lot of times you don't need like the very best at the one little thing, right? What you need is like interoperability. You need easy access. You need to be able to make sure that your software talks to each other and works together in conjunction. And so Vendasta really works to help people do some of those kind of things because we think that frees up more time than anything else. And we believe fundamentally that small businesses are looking for software to help them free up time to do the thing that's most valuable to them. Yep,
agreed. Cool. So yeah, I think the online side is what we're drawn to, right? In terms of just, hey, there's a great resource out there. There's Google Google does a good job on Google My Business and shows you things and localizes content where it needs to be localized, and obviously gives you other good stuff too. But I think the other part is kind of the old-fashioned, hey, who do you use, right? What we talked about earlier. The more you're networked and, involved in different business organizations and those types of things, the more, of again, I'll date myself with the term Rolodex, but, the connections you have with people can be that knowledge network, right? And, okay, hey, I still see it on the consumer side in Facebook. Hey, does anybody know a good plumber? Or, you get a couple text messages and those types of things. That's how businesses, in a lot of cases, that's still the top referral source or top lead sources from referrals. So that's a great one. The last time, when people do come to me because like, hey, you run this site that has a whole bunch of stuff, like what, who's a good person to use for these things? I now can cheat and go, well, our team recommends these guys, but there's also obviously some people, we have in our networks that know some of these things and can provide a big one. But, so I would encourage the small businesses that are out there now, start asking around. Or if you don't have a lot of relationships and that knowledge network isn't deep, that's a great excuse, one of many excuses to expand it. Chambers of Commerce, Alignable, and then some of these platforms. LinkedIn obviously is a great platform. So, I'd say make those connections. I'm trying to think of a few others.
Rotary Club, I think, is another one where people go to get kind of referrals like that. And I'm with you. LinkedIn is such a, there's a love-hate relationship with another software to give your data to and to work through that. But boy, I tell you, I've got a lot of relationships from LinkedIn that have really helped me professionally over the years. And as a small business owner, sometimes it feels like it's not your playground, I think, right? That you don't, but I think for this, it's really valuable, right? To have built some relationships there and probably worth investing in as a small business.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, again, that'd probably be, if someone was starting out something right now, that would be my big, it's good for, obviously, depending on what you're selling, to start creating sales relationships, but it's almost just as important on the vendor and partner side, right? So I think there's two sides of that. When you're selling something to somebody, but when you're buying something from somebody, leveraging that platform, can be pretty powerful for sure.
And you get a great read on the person you're dealing with. Like any salesperson that calls me, first thing if I meet with them, right? Right? if I'm going to meet with somebody, I'm going to stalk them on LinkedIn for a minute. Like, I may know somebody, but, are they a job hopper? Have they gone to 10 different jobs in the last week? Have they, do they have recommendations from other colleagues that they've worked for? Have they won any awards? Are they certified in anything? Like, all of that's available about the business professional you're dealing with. And LinkedIn does a great job of making that available to you. So I think it's a great place to work.
Agreed. Cool. We've got about 10 minutes here. One of the ones I want to make sure we dive into. Okay, so what's the right process? We've identified needs. We've talked through resources to get your process started. It's okay. So you search on Google or you leverage your knowledge network and you get a couple names now. Where do you start, Gib? How do you start to winnow down maybe 3 people you've got or 3 pieces of software you're looking at? Take me through your process a little bit.
Yeah, anytime I need to software, I generally start with Google, right? Like I want to see who's coming up in the search results. I want to see, I want to look at 3 to 5 kind of software players in the space that I can get a sense of how are they positioning themselves. Are they talking about their features or are they talking about my benefits? Do they understand the job to be done that I need to have done? Are they able to talk to me in my language? And I think that's really important. So I start there. I find those 3 to 5, and then oftentimes I'll go to LinkedIn and start to look for a professional either in my network or a professional at one of those companies that I think is that I can see has some skills, right? That has some expertise, has been in the space or the industry for a little while, and then oftentimes I'll reach out to them via LinkedIn, or I'll try to find a friend of a friend and try to reach out to that person that way. Or because we're going to get 7 or 8 calls in the week, sometimes I just wait for the call to come in because I know it's going to, once I start searching for it and once I start looking for it, that I'm going to show up on all of their marketing lists. They're going to find me now that know that I'm in the business, right? And so the likelihood of me seeing ads for it is going to go up. So then it becomes, I write my list of like must-haves. So I like to put that in a list of like, what are the things that I have to do? What are the things that are most important to me? As a product guy, I like to call it acceptance criteria. Like, how do I know if this software has done its job? And I want a metric that's tied to that. So I want to find a way to measure very quickly whether this software has actually improved my business in the way that I expected it to do. Now, all software has a different payback period of time, and you've got to think about that and, your investment period to learn it and adopt it. But I want to put metrics to it so that I can see if this is actually giving me the return that I expect it to. And then I want to go into, a competitive bid, right? And many large companies, what they do, the process is, an RFC, right? Or, an RFQ or, right? They put together a long list of all the things that it has to do. I don't know that you want to do that, but you can Google search for those things and often find examples of questions to ask, and you can borrow ones that have been published from them. But I would write down those questions and then ask again 2 to 3 providers. Not 10, not 20, but I'd pick 2 or 3 and negotiate a little bit because there's almost always a little meat on the bone from a software perspective that you can kind of negotiate through. Yeah,
agreed. I think on the services side, it starts in the same starting point that you have, which is the problem, right? So, maybe on the software side, if you've got a really good salesperson, they're going to make sure if you don't know it exactly, they're going to dig in and understand that and make sure what your problem is aligns to what they can solve. So it's good to do that as a buyer to make sure you kind of got that lined up, but that person really needs to understand your problem. And I think the services side, same thing. Oh, you need a website. Okay, so what does the website need to do? So there should be a lot of questions involved to make sure there's really clear alignment around what success looks like. And like I said, it can be really difficult on the services side. What does it look like? Well, and sometimes it's easy. Well, now I've got this accounting mess and hopefully I don't have to, right? I've got bills to pay and now someone's paying those bills. So it can be really straightforward as to, what that looks like and how that plays out. And hopefully it's saved time and all those sorts of things. On the marketing side, it can be really challenging, as you and I both know. A website can cost $50 or it can cost $50,000, right? So getting getting your scope, the problem, and the scope properly aligned to it. You may get alignment around the problem, but that person may say, okay, I'm going to solve that problem. It's $50,000 and you've got a $100 budget. Ooh, you're really misaligned. And it's better to figure that out early on than in some cases it doesn't get aligned. And then 3 months later, someone delivers that website and you get this shocker of a bill and all hell breaks loose, right? So yeah, those are the big ones, I think. Really making sure there's a good discussion and a clear definition of what success looks like. Hopefully we'll take a lot of the risk out of the process. Someone jumps into there. The other thing I think kind of that's related to that, Gib, that we talked about earlier, just making sure, how do you, there's that purchase process, and then after that, what's the relationship with the vendor going forward, and on the software side, and there's going to be bugs on the services side, there's going to be challenges. So there are sometimes these one-time projects you get, or maybe you just need a piece of software to knock out one thing for you. On the service side, maybe you just need that website. But maybe there's, like I talked about, on the accounting side, it's a monthly billing process. It's, these are ongoing things. Take me through that. What can our listeners think about as it relates to their role on an ongoing basis, upfront, but then, on day 30, day 180, day 360?
It is a partnership. And I think you have to start to think of them as an employee. And if you managed employees well, and you probably are doing that as a small business owner, there's some things that you need to have in there, right? You've got to have a performance review, right? You have to have, you've got to set goals and alignment, right? You have to learn enough about the software that you are able to ask the smart questions. You're counting on this person to be there, but you got to do a little research before you get into that meeting so that you can, know your numbers, know your measurement. If you have to just Google, common questions to ask about accounting software, right? Do a little bit of research so that you show that expert that you are invested in this space. Trust but verify, I think, is a phrase that used to be used a lot, right? But you do have to manage that person. It's not going to go away, and you don't want to leave complete trust. And make sure that you've got the logins, make sure that you've got the passwords, make sure that you've got access to the software, and that you've got a backup plan with somebody else on how to use it if there's a change. Because there's nothing worse than investing a lot into a website, and boy, all of a sudden those passwords are gone, and you're like, I can't change the picture, and and that guy doesn't work here anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. Just thinking through some of the what if this happened, the what ifs, right? And having some backup plans. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the word partnership is a way to think about it. Yeah, they're a vendor, but we like to use the word partner because the way we think about the service buying process is like we're kind of a Match.com for businesses. So we're trying to make sure that we're aligning people and educating, trying to empowering both sides of that transaction and educating them both on, make sure you sell this right, but also make sure you buy this right. And it takes two to make sure that process works. And then how do we make sure that relationship is still around 30, 180 days out from now? Ideally, the people that we're connecting via our platform, these are long-term marketing partnerships, and long-term accounting partnerships, and long-term IT partnerships. Because like you said, no one wants they're looking for a new IT provider every 6 months. You want these people to be the man or the woman who are going to really just knock this thing out for you and take this problem off your plate. But it isn't, you can't throw it over the wall. It's just, I think sometimes we see that on the buyer side where, I can't get my person to give me a call back. I don't know how I'm doing. They just want me to email them some reports about how many clicks I sent them, and I don't hear anything else. And then 3 months later, they fire me. So, it is a partnership. You have to invest. Again, it's going to save some time, and some partnerships may take some of your time. But if you identify this as a problem and you think that this is the right person to solve it for you, there is some time investment that's going to be necessary to really kind of get the full ROI out of it. So those are the things we've seen that have been a little rough when we talk to people about some of the relationships that have worked and the relationships that haven't, and the breakdowns.
That's great.
Cool.
Great
feedback. Yeah. So I think, Heather, we're at the 50-minute mark. We want to make sure and check in for any questions that may have popped in along the way. Anything else that might be out there?
Thanks, guys. I haven't seen any new questions pop up, so you just must have done a fantastic job answering all the questions that were unasked. So it went quickly.
Cool.
You guys did a phenomenal job. Do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I think again, for the most part, I'll say a couple things and then turn it over to Gib. But we know this. Like I said, this can be a really stressful process. Like everything else in the world, it's moving really fast. There's more things. There's more providers. There's more choice than ever before. But that's a great opportunity, right? So now you've got better choice than you have, and the likelihood that there's a solution, a software solution, a person that's out there that can really help you out is greater now than it ever has before. Yes, it can be overwhelming. Yes, you have to have a process to make sure it works, and it's not easy, and these things take time. But make sure and embrace that too much pile, and just have a really good process for how you dig in. Go ahead and get it.
Love that. Dan, I think we've covered a lot, but here's what I'll say, and I say this to the teams that I have that work with small businesses, that thank you for being a small business. I think they're the things that make our communities vibrant, interesting, and fantastic. It's, my experience at raising kids in a community has been that small business owners are the ones that, sponsor our Little League teams or our soccer clubs. They're the ones that donate to our schools and churches so that we can raise funds. They're the ones that hire our kids their first job. And so to have a chance to hopefully help a small business owner today, I'm really grateful that I got that opportunity, because I am grateful for the energy and effort you've put in to make our communities great. And so thank you for that.